The cargo hauler times, serendipity times, drifted through the neutral zone between human and Vrexian space, its hull scarred from years of transport runs. Marcus Chen sat in the cramped cockpit, reviewing shipping manifests on a cracked display screen. Another routine delivery of agricultural equipment to the colony on Kepler 442b. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous. Just the way he liked it. The proximity alarm chirped softly, barely audible over the hum of the aging reactor. Marcus glanced at the scanner, expecting to see another piece of space debris. The neutral zone was littered with wreckage from the war that had ended 3 years ago. Instead, his screen showed a small craft, sleek and dark, matching his velocity exactly. His stomach tightened. Vrexian design. No identification beacon. Marcus reached for the communications panel, his hand hovering over the distress signal button. Before he could press it, his entire console went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the cockpit in dim red. Every system had been remotely shut down. Every system except life support. The metallic clang of a docking clamp attaching to his airlock echoed through the ship's hull. Someone was boarding. Marcus scrambled from his seat, searching for anything that could serve as a weapon. His hands closed around a heavy hydrospanner from the toolkit under his console. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. He positioned himself beside the inner airlock door, hydrospanner raised, heart hammering against his ribs. The outer door hissed open. Footsteps, light and deliberate, crossed the threshold. The inner door began to cycle. Marcus tightened his grip on the tool, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air. The door slid open. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the harsh white light from the docked ship. As his eyes adjusted, Marcus could make out the details. She was Vrexian. That much was clear from the distinctive silver-white skin and the subtle luminescence that all Vrexians possessed. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with a lean, powerful build that spoke of extensive combat training. Her clothing was form-fitting black armor, designed for stealth rather than protection. In her right hand, she held a plasma blade, its edge shimmering with contained energy, but it was her face that made Marcus freeze. Vrexians were humanoid in many ways, but their features were sharper, more angular. High cheekbones, pointed chin, eyes that were slightly larger than human proportions and entirely black, like pools of liquid night. This Vrexian's face was no exception. Yet there was something else. 3 parallel scars ran from her right temple down to her jaw, the tissue raised and darker than the surrounding skin. A mark of shame in Vrexian culture, Marcus knew. Only criminals or outcasts bore such marks. She stepped fully into the ship, and the door sealed behind her with a soft hiss. Her black eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made him feel like prey, being studied by a predator. She said nothing, merely tilted her head slightly, examining him. Marcus raised the hydrospanner higher, trying to keep his voice steady. "I don't have anything valuable. Just farming equipment. You're wasting your time." The Vrexian's lips curled into what might have been a smile, though it held no warmth. When she spoke, her voice was surprisingly soft, with the melodic quality that all Vrexian speech carried. "I am not here for your cargo, Marcus Chen." The use of his name sent ice through his veins. This wasn't a random pirate attack. This was targeted. This was personal. "Then what do you want?" He tried to keep the fear out of his voice and failed. She took a step closer, and Marcus instinctively backed away. "I am Kaelith, of the Silent Blade. I have been sent to kill you." There it was. Simple, direct, no pretense. Marcus's mind raced. Why would anyone want him dead? He was nobody. A cargo hauler. He'd served in the war, sure, but as a supply ship pilot. He'd never even fired a weapon in combat. Why? The question came out as barely more than a whisper. Kaelith continued her approach, forcing Marcus backward through the narrow corridor toward the cargo hold. "You ask the wrong question. The correct question is who, but you will not live long enough to learn that answer." Marcus's back hit the wall beside the cargo hold entrance, There was nowhere left to retreat. Kaelith was 3 meters away, her plasma blade humming with lethal intent. He could see his reflection distorted in her black eyes. In that moment, he made a decision. If he was going to die, he would at least try to understand why. Was it something I did during the war? He asked, stalling for time even though he knew it was futile. Did I kill someone important? Destroy something? Kaelith paused, her head tilting in that curious way again. You destroyed nothing. You killed no one. That is what makes this assignment puzzling to me as well. She was close enough now that Marcus could see the fine patterns of bioluminescence beneath her skin, like veins of light that pulsed slowly with her heartbeat. My employer paid a substantial sum for your death. They provided me with your complete history. A very ordinary life for a very ordinary human. Then why accept the contract? Marcus asked, desperate to keep her talking. Because I am very good at what I do, and I do not turn down profitable work. She raised the plasma blade. Close your eyes if you wish. I am told it is easier for your kind. Marcus kept his eyes open, staring directly at her face. If these were his last moments, he wouldn't spend them in darkness. He watched as Kaelith's arm began to move, the blade arcing toward his throat. Time seemed to slow. He saw every detail of her expression, the cold professional detachment of a killer who had done this many times before, and then, something changed. Kaelith's eyes widened. The blade stopped mere centimeters from Marcus's neck, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from it. Her entire body had gone rigid. Frozen in mid-strike, she was staring at him. But her expression had transformed from professional coldness to something Marcus couldn't identify. Shock? Horror? Recognition? It cannot be, she whispered, so quietly Marcus almost didn't hear it. The plasma blade wavered, lowered slightly. Your face. Those eyes. Marcus had no idea what she was talking about. What about my face? Kaelith took a step back, and for the first time since boarding his ship, she looked uncertain. The plasma blade deactivated with a soft hiss, and she clipped it to her belt with trembling hands. Her breathing had become rapid, her bioluminescence flickering erratically. You are. She started, then stopped, struggling to find words. No. It is impossible. The genetic markers do not match. You are fully human. What are you talking about? Marcus pressed, sensing an opportunity. Whatever had stopped her from killing him, he needed to understand it, to use it. Kaelith backed away until she hit the opposite wall of the corridor. She raised a hand to her face, fingers tracing the scars on her cheek as if seeking comfort from the touch. Her eyes never left Marcus's face. Your facial structure, your eyes, the specific spacing, the shape. I know this face. She pulled a small device from her belt, a holographic projector. With a flick of her finger, an image materialized in the air between them. It showed a young Vrexian male, perhaps the equivalent of a human teenager. He had the same silver-white skin, the same black eyes, but his face was unlined by the scars that marked Kaelith. He was smiling in the image, genuinely happy. Marcus stared at the hologram, then at Kaelith, then back at the hologram. He didn't see the resemblance she was talking about. The Vrexian looked nothing like him. Different species, different features, different everything. But Kaelith saw something. She saw it clearly, and it had shaken her to her core. Who is that? Marcus asked gently, sensing that he was standing at the edge of something important. My brother, Kaelith said, her voice thick with emotion that she was barely controlling. Varith. He died 12 cycles ago. 6 of your years. Her hand shook as she gestured at the hologram. You have his face. Not exact, not identical. But close enough that when you looked at me with those eyes, for one moment, I saw him again. Marcus's mind reeled. A case of mistaken identity had saved his life. No, not mistaken identity. Something else. Something stranger. A coincidence of features across species barriers that had triggered a memory, a grief, a moment of hesitation that had made an assassin lower her weapon. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and meant it. "I'm sorry for your loss." Kaelith's luminescence steadied, and she deactivated the hologram. When she looked at him again, her expression had hardened, but it was different from before. The cold professionalism was gone, replaced by something more complex: conflict. "Your apology means nothing. You did not know him. You are not him." "No," Marcus agreed. "I'm not." They stood in silence for a long moment. Assassin and target, neither sure what should happen next. Finally, Kaelith spoke. "I should kill you. I have accepted the contract. I have already taken the payment." Kaelith. And I. Kaelith. I. Kaelith. 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 I. Kaelith. "I have already taken the payment." Kaelith. "But you're not going to," Marcus said. It wasn't a question. "No," Kaelith admitted, the word seeming to cause her physical pain. "I cannot. When I look at you, I see his face. I see his eyes. I remember the last time I saw him alive." She pushed off from the wall, standing straight again, composing herself. "This is weakness. This is unprofessional, but I cannot do it." Marcus slowly lowered the Hydra spanner, setting it on the floor. A peace offering. A gesture of trust. "What happens now?" Kaelith considered the question. "Now, I have a problem. I cannot kill you. But if I do not, my employer will send another assassin. And another, until you are dead." She began to pace, her movements precise and controlled despite the emotional turmoil visible in her eyes. "You need to disappear. Change your identity. Go somewhere they cannot find you. Or," Marcus said carefully, "we could find out who wants me dead and why." Kaelith stopped pacing, turning to face him with sharp attention. "We? You said yourself. You don't understand why anyone would pay to kill me. Doesn't that bother you? Don't you want to know?" Marcus was gambling now, but he had nothing to lose. "You're an assassin. You must have resources, contacts, skills I don't have, and I know things about human space that you don't. Working together, we might actually figure this out." "You are proposing an alliance with the person sent to kill you," Kaelith said flatly. "This is either very brave or very stupid." "Probably both," Marcus admitted. "But you're right about one thing. If you don't kill me, someone else will try. I'd rather face that with help than alone. And you have a problem too. If you don't complete this contract, what happens to your reputation? To your career?" Kaelith's expression darkened. "That is my concern, not yours." "It could be both our concerns," Marcus pressed. "If we figure out who hired you and why, maybe we can deal with them directly. Remove the threat at its source. Then nobody else comes after me, and you can honestly say the problem was resolved." He could see her considering it, weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, she spoke. "Your logic has merit, but you overlook one factor. I am Vrexian. You are human. Our peoples were at war. In many places, that hatred still burns. If we are seen together, both of us will become targets. Then we stay hidden," Marcus said. "We work in the shadows. Like you're used to doing." Kaelith studied him for a long moment, her black eyes unreadable. Then, to Marcus's surprise, she extended her hand toward him in the human gesture of agreement. "Very well, Marcus Chen. We will be temporary allies, but understand this. If I discover you are manipulating me or using this situation for purposes other than what you claim, I will complete my original contract without hesitation." Marcus reached out and clasped her hand. Her skin was cool to the touch, and her grip was strong enough to hurt. "Understood." As they shook hands, sealing their unlikely alliance, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just become infinitely more complicated. An hour ago, his biggest concern had been whether his reactor would last the trip to Kepler 442b. Now he was partnered with a Vrexian assassin to hunt down whoever wanted him dead. Kaelith released his hand and immediately began moving toward the cockpit. First, we need to restore your ship's systems and change our trajectory. Whoever hired me will be tracking my ship's signal, expecting me to return with confirmation of your death. Marcus followed her, watching as she worked with efficient precision on his console. What will you tell them? Nothing, for now. Radio silence can be explained by complications, but we have perhaps 48 hours before they become suspicious. Her fingers flew across the controls, bypassing security measures and restoring power to the systems she'd shut down. Within minutes, the cockpit was fully operational again. Where are we going? Marcus asked. Kaelith pulled up a star chart, her finger hovering over a system at the edge of mapped space. There, the Meridian Station. It is a neutral trading post frequented by mercenaries, information brokers, and those who wish to remain unseen. If answers exist, we will find them there. Marcus looked at the coordinates. It would take 3 days to reach Meridian Station with his ship's current engine capacity. 3 days alone in space, with a Vrexian assassin who had been sent to kill him. 3 days to either find answers or become a corpse drifting in the void. He settled into his pilot seat and began plotting the course. As the time's serendipity times changed trajectory, Kaelith stood beside him, her reflection visible in the viewport. In that reflection, Marcus saw his own face beside hers, and wondered what she saw when she looked at him. Did she really see her dead brother? Or was that just a convenient excuse to spare someone she'd been paid to kill? Either way, their fates were now intertwined. For better or worse, the cargo hauler and the assassin were in this together. The first day of their journey passed in uncomfortable silence. Marcus focused on keeping the ship running smoothly, while Kaelith spent most of her time in the small crew quarters, doing whatever assassins did when they weren't actively killing people. The few times they crossed paths in the narrow corridors, they exchanged only necessary information. Course corrections, system checks, nothing personal. It was on the second day that things began to change. Marcus was in the cargo hold, running diagnostics on the environmental controls, when Kaelith appeared in the doorway. She stood there for a moment, watching him work. Before speaking, "You were a pilot during the war. Supply runs for the 7th Fleet." Marcus looked up from the control panel, surprised. "You read my file that thoroughly?" "Of course. An assassin who does not research her target is an assassin who does not live long." She stepped into the cargo hold, moving with that fluid grace that seemed natural to her species. But the file contained only facts. Service record, flight logs, current employment. It did not explain why someone would want you dead. "Join the club," Marcus muttered, returning his attention to the diagnostic display. "I've been trying to figure that out myself. I never did anything important enough to make enemies." Kaelith moved closer, examining the crates of agricultural equipment that filled most of the hold. "Perhaps that is precisely why. Sometimes, the most dangerous people are those who appear harmless. They move through the world unnoticed. And in that invisibility lies opportunity." "Opportunity for what?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious about where she was going with this. "I do not know yet. But consider this. You flew supply routes for the 7th Fleet. That fleet operated primarily in the Kepler sector during the final year of the war. Do you remember anything unusual about your assignments? Any cargo that seemed odd? Any destinations that made no strategic sense?" Marcus thought back, sifting through memories of countless identical runs. Supplies from point A to point B. Food, ammunition, medical supplies, equipment. All standard. All routine. Except, there was one thing, he said slowly. A memory surfacing. About 6 months before the ceasefire, I was assigned to transport a sealed container to a research station orbiting Kepler 438. The orders came directly from Fleet Command, bypassed the normal supply chain entirely. Kaelith's eyes sharpened with interest. "What was in the container?" "No idea. It was sealed with command-level encryption. I was told not to ask questions. Just deliver it. And leave immediately. The research station was abandoned when I arrived, completely empty. But there was a receiving dock set up. Automated. I dropped the container, confirmed delivery, and got out. He frowned, the memory troubling him now in ways it hadn't at the time. 2 weeks later, that entire station was destroyed. Official report said it was a Vrexian strike. But you doubt that, Kalith said. And it wasn't a question. The station had no strategic value. It was a science outpost, studying stellar phenomena. Why would your people waste resources destroying it? Marcus closed the diagnostic panel, giving Kalith his full attention. Unless it wasn't your people who destroyed it. Kalith was quiet for a moment, her luminescence pulsing slowly as she processed this information. If your superiors destroyed their own station to hide something, and you were the one who delivered that something, then you are a loose end. A loose end they waited 3 years to tie up? Marcus shook his head. That doesn't make sense either, unless something changed recently. Unless whatever secret they were keeping is about to surface, and they are eliminating anyone who might connect them to it. Kalith began pacing, her mind clearly working through possibilities. Who gave you the delivery orders? Kalith. Who gave you the delivery orders? Commander Elizabeth Frost. She was logistics coordinator for the 7th Fleet. After the war, she got promoted. Last I heard, she was working at Fleet Command on Earth. Marcus felt a chill run through him. You think she's the one who hired you? She would have the resources and the motivation, Kalith said. But we cannot know for certain until we reach Meridian Station, and I make inquiries with my contacts. Marcus leaned against a supply crate, the weight of this revelation pressing down on him. He'd spent 3 years trying to build a peaceful life after the war, hauling cargo from one colony to another, staying out of trouble. And all that time, he'd been carrying a target on his back without even knowing it. Tell me about your brother, Marcus said suddenly, changing the subject before the paranoia could overwhelm him. Vareth. What was he like? Kalith stopped pacing, her expression closing off. That is not relevant to our current situation. Maybe not, Marcus agreed. But we're stuck on this ship together for another day and a half. Might as well talk about something other than who wants me dead. For a long moment, he thought she would refuse. Then, slowly, Kalith moved to sit on one of the crates, her posture relaxing slightly. He was younger than me by 4 cycles. Curious about everything, always asking questions, always wanting to understand how things worked. A faint smile touched her lips. There, and gone, in an instant. It drove our parents to distraction. What happened to him? Marcus asked gently. The smile vanished. The war. He was in his first year of military service, assigned to a patrol craft in the neutral zone. There was a skirmish with a human destroyer. His ship was damaged, life support failing. They sent a distress signal. Her voice became flat, emotionless, the way people sound when they're describing something too painful to feel. The destroyer could have rescued them. They had time. Instead, they left them to die in the void. Marcus felt sick. He remembered hearing about incidents like that during the war. Both sides had committed atrocities, justified them as necessary for survival. For victory. I'm sorry. That shouldn't have happened. War is war, Kalith said, but there was no conviction in the words. Both sides did terrible things. I know this. But knowing does not erase the pain. It does not bring him back. She looked directly at Marcus. When I saw your face, for just one moment, I thought perhaps there had been a mistake. Perhaps he had survived somehow. Had been picked up by your people. Altered to look more human. I know it is irrational. I know it is impossible. But grief makes fools of us all. Is that why you have those scars? Marcus asked, gesturing to the marks on her face. Because of what happened to him? Kalith's hand moved unconsciously to touch the scars. These were given to me by the Council of Blades. After Vareth died, I left my military unit without permission. I went hunting for the ship that had killed him. I found it. 3 months later, docked at a human station in the Outer Rim. Her eyes grew distant. Remembering, I boarded that ship. I killed every member of the crew, 17 humans. Some of them were probably innocent of my brother's death, just replacements for crew lost in other battles. But I did not care. I wanted vengeance. Marcus stayed very still, acutely aware that he was alone on a ship with someone capable of such violence. But he also heard the regret in her voice. The self-recrimination. The council found out, Kaelith continued. Unsanctioned killing, even during wartime, breaks our codes. They gave me a choice. Death or exile. I chose exile. They marked my face so all Vrexians would know what I am. A killer without honor. An outcast. She looked at Marcus again. That is when I became an assassin. If I could not serve my people with honor, I would serve myself with profit. It is not a noble life, but it is the life I chose. You could go home, Marcus said. The war is over. Maybe they'd forgive you now. I do not want forgiveness, Kaelith said firmly. I want purpose. For 6 years, that purpose has been simple. Find contracts, complete them, survive. And then you looked at me with those eyes, and suddenly everything became complicated. They sat in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Marcus spoke. For what it's worth, I think your brother would have been proud of you for not killing me. You could have followed your contract, taken the easy path. Instead, you chose the harder one because it was right. Kaelith made a sound that might have been a laugh or a scoff. You do not know that. You never knew him. No, Marcus admitted. But you did. And you saw something in my face that reminded you of him. Maybe it was just physical similarity. Or maybe, on some level, you recognized something about the kind of person he was. The kind of person who would want you to spare an innocent life, even if it cost you. Kaelith stood abruptly, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. We should check our approach trajectory. Meridian Station has strict entry protocols. If we make an error, they will deny us docking permission. Marcus recognized the deflection for what it was and let her change the subject. They spent the next hour in the cockpit, reviewing the station's requirements and preparing their cover story. They would present themselves as independent traders, Kaelith as his business partner. It was a thin cover. But in a place like Meridian Station, nobody asked too many questions as long as you paid your docking fees. That night, Marcus lay in his narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling of his quarters. Through the thin walls, he could hear the soft sounds of Kaelith moving around in the crew quarters. She never seemed to sleep, or if she did, it was in short periods scattered throughout the day. Another symptom of her profession, he supposed. Assassins probably didn't survive long if they let their guard down completely. He thought about what she'd told him, about her brother and the revenge she'd taken. He should be terrified of her. By all logic, he should be looking for a way to escape, to get as far away from this dangerous killer as possible. But instead, he found himself feeling something else. Sympathy. Understanding. And maybe, though it seemed insane, the beginnings of trust. She'd had every opportunity to kill him over the past 2 days. She could do it right now, while he was vulnerable and unarmed. But she hadn't. She'd kept her word, and in Marcus's experience, that meant something. The next morning, they began their approach to Meridian Station. The station itself was a massive construct, built from the remains of dozens of different ships and modules that had been joined together over decades. It rotated slowly in the void, lights from thousands of viewports creating a spiral pattern against the darkness of space. Ships of all sizes and designs clustered around it like moths around a flame. Marcus guided the times, serendipity times, into the traffic pattern, following automated instructions from the station's control system. Beside him, Kaelith watched the viewscreen with intense focus. Her training evident in the way she tracked every ship, noted every potential threat or escape route. Cargo hauler time serendipity *. You are cleared for docking at port 17, A bored voice crackled over the communications channel. Docking fee is 200 credits. Stay time is limited to 48 hours. Station rules are posted in your assigned berth. Welcome to Meridian. Marcus maneuvered them into the assigned docking port, the magnetic clamps engaging with a solid thunk. The ship settled into place, and he shut down the primary systems, leaving only minimal power to life support and security. Ready? He asked Kaelith. She checked her plasma blade, concealed beneath her jacket, and nodded. Remember, let me do most of the talking. Your face is too honest. People will see through any lies you attempt. Marcus wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an insult, but he nodded agreement. They opened the airlock and stepped onto Meridian Station, entering a world where danger and opportunity walked hand in hand, and where the answers they sought might finally be found. Meridian Station assaulted the senses. The main corridor was a chaotic blend of species, languages, and purposes. Humans rubbed shoulders with Vrexians, both pretending the war had never happened. Other species Marcus barely recognized haggled over goods in markets that spilled out from legitimate shops into the corridor itself. The air smelled of exotic spices, machine oil, and something vaguely chemical that Marcus couldn't identify. Kaelith moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her hand occasionally touching Marcus's arm to steer him in the right direction. Despite her distinctive scars, most beings gave her a wide berth, their survival instincts recognizing a predator when they saw one. They arrived at a bar called the Fractured Compass, squeezed between a weapons dealer and a questionable medical clinic. The entrance was marked only by a faded holographic sign, showing a broken navigational instrument. Kaelith pushed through the door without hesitation, and Marcus followed. Inside, the lighting was deliberately dim, the kind of darkness that encouraged secrets and discouraged scrutiny. A dozen tables scattered across the space were occupied by various beings, conducting quiet conversations. In the corner, a Caltharian bartender with 4 arms efficiently served drinks while simultaneously cleaning glasses and counting credits. Kaelith led Marcus to a booth in the back, positioning herself so she could see the entire room. Wait here. Order something cheap. Do not make eye contact with anyone. Before Marcus could respond, she was gone, moving through the shadows toward a private room behind the bar. He flagged down the bartender and ordered water, ignoring the contemptuous look that earned him. The water arrived in a surprisingly clean glass, and Marcus sipped it slowly, trying to look like he belonged here. Minutes stretched into an uncomfortable quarter hour. Marcus watched the bar's other patrons, noting the careful way they avoided looking directly at each other. This was a place for people who didn't want to be seen, conducting business that couldn't stand scrutiny. He wondered, not for the first time, what he'd gotten himself into. The door to the private room opened, and Kaelith emerged, but she wasn't alone. Behind her came a human man, tall and powerfully built, with gray hair and a face that had seen too many fights. He wore civilian clothes, but something about his bearing screamed military training. His eyes found Marcus immediately, and a complex expression crossed his face. Recognition, confusion, and something that might have been guilt. They approached the booth, and Kaelith gestured to the man. Marcus Chen. This is Nathan Cross. He has information about your situation. Nathan slid into the booth across from Marcus, studying him with uncomfortable intensity. I'll be damned, he muttered. You really do have his face. Marcus felt a chill run through him. Whose face? Nathan glanced at Kaelith, who had remained standing, positioned to watch both the conversation and the room. You want to tell him? Or should I? You were there, Kaelith said coldly. You should explain. Nathan sighed, leaning back in his seat. 6 years ago, I was a sergeant in the 7th Fleet. We were on patrol in the neutral zone when we received a distress signal from a Vrexian ship, life support failing, crew dying. Our captain ordered us to ignore it, to continue on our route. Standard procedure during wartime. He paused, pain evident in his eyes. But our communications officer, a kid named David Chen, didn't think it was right. He argued with the captain, said we should help them, war or no war. The captain threatened him with court-martial, so David waited until the captain was off the bridge, and he sent a signal to that Vrexian ship, coordinates to a nearby station where they could find help. Marcus felt the name hit him like a physical blow. David Chen, his younger brother. The brother who had died during the war, killed in what was officially listed as an accident during a training exercise. David, Marcus whispered. Nathan nodded grimly. The captain found out what he'd done. Said David had committed treason. Given aid to the enemy. David was arrested. Thrown in the brig. A week later, we got word that he'd died. Suicide, they said. But those of us who knew him, who saw the bruises when they took his body off the ship, we knew better. Marcus's hands clenched into fists on the table. His brother, his brilliant, idealistic, stubborn younger brother, who had always believed in doing the right thing, no matter the cost. The brother whose death had never made sense, whose loss had haunted Marcus for 6 years. Why didn't you say anything? Marcus demanded, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. Why didn't you report what really happened? Because I was a coward. Nathan said simply. Because I had a wife and kids back home. And I didn't want to end up like David. So I kept my mouth shut, finished my tour, and got out. I've regretted it every day since. Kaelith placed a hand on the table, drawing their attention. The Vrexian ship David Chen helped was carrying my brother, Vareth. Because of David's coordinates, they were able to reach a repair station. Vareth survived. She looked at Marcus, her black eyes reflecting the dim light. For 3 more months, at least, he survived. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture Marcus didn't want to see. So the ship that left Vareth to die was the same ship your brother served on? Kaelith confirmed. When I hunted them down, when I killed that crew, I was avenging both our brothers. I just did not know it at the time. Nathan shifted uncomfortably. I wasn't on board for that. I'd already transferred off, couldn't stand being around the captain anymore. But I heard about it. Heard about the Vrexian assassin who slaughtered the crew. Most people thought it was a revenge strike for something that happened during the war. Nobody made the connection to David. Except someone did, Marcus said, his mind racing. Someone who knew what David did. Who knew about the captain's retaliation. Who knew it all had to stay buried. Commander Frost. Nathan confirmed. She was the one who covered up David's murder. Made it look like suicide. She was protecting the captain. Protecting the fleet's reputation. And when the war ended, she got promoted for her loyal service. His expression darkened. 3 months ago, there was an investigation. Some journalists started asking questions about suspicious deaths during the war. David's name came up. Frost managed to bury it again. But she knows the story might come out eventually, so she's eliminating anyone who might connect the dots. Starting with me, Marcus said. Because I'm David's brother. And someone might think I know something. Exactly, Nathan confirmed. I only found out about this because Frost tried to hire me for the job before she went to Kaelith. I turned her down, but I've been keeping tabs on her activities since then. He looked at Marcus with something like respect. You're lucky Kaelith didn't kill you. She's got a reputation for never missing. Not luck, Kaelith said quietly. Fate. Or perhaps justice. When I saw his face, so similar to the brother I lost, and the brother who saved him, I could not pull the trigger. Marcus took a moment to process everything. His brother hadn't died because of a training accident. He'd been murdered for trying to save lives. And now, 6 years later, that same corruption was trying to kill Marcus to keep the secret buried. What about you? Marcus asked Nathan. Aren't you at risk too? Nathan smiled grimly. I've made my peace with that. After I turned down Frost's offer, I started keeping detailed records of everything I know, with instructions to release them if anything happens to me. Insurance policy. I can get you set up with the same thing. That is not enough, Kaelith said firmly. Insurance policies can be circumvented. The only way to truly protect Marcus is to remove the threat entirely. You mean kill Frost? Nathan said, not bothering to make it a question. I mean expose her, Kaelith corrected. If her crimes become public knowledge, She loses the power to hurt anyone. She becomes the target instead of the threat. Marcus looked at her in surprise. Since when do assassins care about exposure over elimination? Since I learned that sometimes killing is the easy way out. Kaleth replied. If we kill Frost, we solve your immediate problem, but leave the system that created her intact. Someone else will rise to take her place. Someone else will cover up inconvenient truths. But if we expose what she did, if we force the military to acknowledge its crimes, then we create change. Nathan nodded slowly. It's risky. Going up against Fleet Command with just evidence and hope, then we make sure the evidence is undeniable. Marcus said, feeling a strange sense of purpose crystallize within him. For 6 years, he'd mourned his brother without understanding why he died. Now he knew. And now he had a chance to make it mean something. Nathan, you said there was a journalist investigating this. Can you put us in touch with them? Alexandra Martinez works for the Independent Colonial Press, Nathan said. She's tough, thorough, and completely incorruptible. If we bring her solid proof, she'll run with it. Then that's what we do, Marcus said firmly. We gather every piece of evidence we can find. We document everything. And we give Martinez a story she can't ignore. Kaleth tilted her head, studying Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. You have changed in the past 3 days. When I first boarded your ship, you were afraid, uncertain. Now I have something to fight for, Marcus replied. My brother died trying to do the right thing. The least I can do is finish what he started. Over the next hour, they planned their approach. Nathan had contacts who could access military records, people who owed him favors from his time in service. Kaleth had her own resources in the intelligence community, beings who dealt in information and could be convinced to share for the right price. And Marcus, despite being just a cargo hauler, knew the supply chain systems better than almost anyone. He could track shipments, cross-reference orders, find the paper trail that would tie Frost to her crimes. They split up to begin their investigation, agreeing to meet back at the bar in 12 hours. Marcus and Kaleth returned to the Times Serendipity Times to access the ship's data archives. If Marcus was right, there would be records of that sealed container delivery, orders that might trace back to Frost herself. As they worked through the ship's logs, Marcus found himself watching Kaleth. She sat at the console with intense focus, her fingers flying across the controls with practiced efficiency. Bioluminescence pulsed beneath her skin in patterns he was beginning to recognize. Slow pulses meant she was thinking deeply. Faster pulses indicated frustration or excitement. You're staring, Kaleth said without looking up from the screen. Sorry, Marcus said. I was just thinking about how strange this is. 3 days ago, you were trying to kill me. Now we're working together to expose a conspiracy. Life takes unexpected turns, Kaleth replied. The question is whether we are wise enough to follow the right path when it presents itself. Do you think we can actually pull this off? Marcus asked. Take down someone as powerful as Frost? Kaleth finally looked up from the console, meeting his eyes. I think that your brother proved something important when he sent those coordinates to my brother's ship. He proved that one person, making one choice, can change everything. He died for that belief. We would dishonor his memory if we did not try to live up to it. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental controls. This cold, dangerous assassin who had been sent to kill him was honoring his brother's memory, was choosing to fight for justice rather than profit, was risking everything for someone she'd only known for 3 days. Thank you, Marcus said quietly, for not killing me, for helping me understand what really happened, for everything. Kaleth's expression softened slightly, the closest thing to a smile he'd seen from her. Thank me when we survive this. For now, we have work to do. They found what they needed buried in the archived logs, orders for the sealed container delivery, with Frost's authentication code hidden in the metadata. Cross-referencing with Kaleth's intelligence sources, they discovered that the container had held experimental weapons technology, illegal under the ceasefire agreement. Frost had been running a black market operation, using supposedly decommissioned research stations to develop weapons she could sell to the highest bidder. David's delivery had been the final piece of that operation. And when the station was destroyed, it had been to eliminate evidence, not enemy targets. The Vrexian strike story had been a convenient lie. They compiled everything into a secure data package and added Nathan's testimonies and records. By the time they met Martinez at a secure location Nathan had arranged, they had enough evidence to not just implicate Frost, but to reveal an entire network of corruption within Fleet Command. Alexandra Martinez was a woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes and the kind of skepticism that came from years of seeing people lie. She reviewed their evidence in silence for nearly an hour, occasionally asking pointed questions. Finally, she looked up from her portable terminal. "This is solid," she said simply. "If I run this story, Frost will go down. So will several others in Fleet Command. It will be a major scandal. Can you protect your sources?" Calith asked, ever practical. "I can and will," Martinez confirmed. "But you all need to understand something. Once this story breaks, you won't be able to go back to your old lives. Marcus, you'll be known as the brother of David Chen, the hero who tried to save enemies during wartime. Calith, your involvement will expose you as someone who works with humans, which will make you targets among Vrexian hardliners. Nathan, you'll be seen as a whistleblower, and while some will call you brave, others will call you a traitor." "We understand," Marcus said, speaking for all of them. "We're ready." Martinez nodded and began sending secure messages. "I'll have this story up within 6 hours. I suggest you all find somewhere safe to be when it breaks. Frost will know who leaked this, and she'll be desperate." They left Martinez's location and returned to Meridian Station. In the main corridor, amid all the chaos and commerce, they stopped to consider their next move. "I have a safe house," Nathan offered. "Remote planet in the Outer Rim. We could lay low there until things settle down." "Or," Marcus said, surprising himself with his boldness, "we could stay together. Keep working. There are probably other people like Frost, other injustices that need exposing. We make a good team." Kylith raised an eyebrow. "You are suggesting that an assassin, a former soldier with a guilty conscience, and a cargo hauler form some kind of alliance?" "Why not?" Marcus said. "We all want the same thing. To do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous. That seems like a pretty good foundation to me." Nathan laughed, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from him. "Kid's got a point. I've been drifting since I left the service. Wouldn't mind having a purpose again." Calith was quiet for a long moment, her luminescence pulsing slowly. Then she extended her hand toward Marcus, palm up in a Vrexian gesture of partnership. "Very well, we will see where this path leads us." Marcus placed his hand over hers, and Nathan added his on top. 3 people from different worlds, brought together by tragedy and choice, making a promise to each other and to the memories of those they'd lost. 6 hours later, Martinez's story broke across every major news network in human space. Within a day, the Vrexian networks picked it up as well. The scandal was everything they'd hoped for, and more. Frost was arrested, along with 14 other officers involved in the conspiracy. There were calls for reforms, for independent oversight of military operations, for accountability, and in the chaos of the scandal's aftermath, 3 unlikely allies slipped away from Meridian Station, heading out into the unknown aboard the Times Serendipity Asterisk. They had work to do, wrongs to right, and a galaxy full of people who needed someone to fight for them. Marcus stood in the cockpit, watching the stars stretch into lines as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Calith stood beside him, her reflection visible in the viewport. He looked at her face, with its scars and its strange beauty, and thought about how 3 days ago, she had been death itself, coming for him in the darkness. Now she was his partner, his friend. Maybe, someday, something more. But that was a question for another time. "Where to?" Nathan called from the navigation station. Marcus smiled, feeling truly hopeful for the first time since David's death. "Forward," he said simply. "Let's go forward and see what we can do." The ship jumped, carrying them toward whatever future awaited. Behind them, the truth they'd fought to reveal was changing the galaxy. Ahead of them, new challenges and new opportunities beckoned. And in that moment, surrounded by people who had chosen to stand with him, Marcus Chen felt like the luckiest man alive. Not because an assassin had failed to kill him, but because in failing, she had helped him understand that every life has meaning, every choice matters, and sometimes, the people who seem most dangerous turn out to be exactly the allies you need. His brother had understood that truth 6 years ago, when he chose to save lives rather than follow orders. Now Marcus would carry that truth forward, honoring his brother's memory with every choice he made. And beside him, marked by scars and driven by guilt and honor, a Vrexian assassin who had seen a ghost in a stranger's face would help him do it. The galaxy had tried to bury the truth. But truth, like hope, had a way of surviving. And with people willing to fight for it, even the darkest secrets could be brought into the light.